How's it going, folks? Jack here with another reaction. So, as I uploaded the last video on the first and perhaps only Pacific Rim movie, I did not expect the surprise support that the second movie would have, because it actually has people who enjoy it. Oh! Okay, I'm not here to be a party pooper, right? I do understand that the movie can be enjoyable as a standalone thing, right? It's a watchable, nice movie, okay? Giant robots fighting kaiju and other giant robots that are being piloted by said kaiju. But as a sequel, some people considering it to be a great sequel, you cap it. That is just genuinely a point that I do not understand. This movie does a lot of wrongs, and I do hope that we can watch this with that in mind. And by the way, I just want to make it clear, sometimes we criticize movies here and or certain franchises, or sometimes even games. We do that for fun, okay? Because we can all enjoy the media that we consume to a certain degree. We are not here to say that something that we are stating is objective the way it is. Hells, I'm not gonna lie, I actually did like the appearance of that obsidian thingy named Kaiju. But for those of you who may never have heard of a sequel to Pacific Rim, think of this as the last time that you ever will, okay? So without further ado, let's jump into the one we agreed to never mention again.
Sometimes a sequel can be just as good as the original, sometimes even better. Sometimes a sequel is bad and ruins the legacy of the first. And sometimes a sequel is so bad that everyone collectively agrees that it does not exist.
Okay, look, Shrek 2 is not bad. Come on. Shrek 2 is not bad, Shrek 2 is legendary even. Also, it is the movie that paved the way to Antonio Banderas still having a career outside of Expendables. Now, rightfully, of course, Shrek 3. It's a mess, but this version of Snow White, where she's totally metal, lives rent-free in my head. It's a good one.
It is so bad that everyone collectively agrees that it does not exist. That's Pacific Rim 2. You see, bringing up the existence of Pacific Rim Uprising to a fan of the first movie is often met with confusion, surprise, bewilderment. This is a Lake Laogai situation where a
There's no worse embarrassing say.
It would have been cool if a sequel did happen, too bad it didn't, and in my opinion that's certainly the best approach to view this movie from. In fact, I originally wasn't going to make this its own video. I was going to tack it onto Pacific Rim 1 to not break the running gag, but it was going to be like a 50-minute video, and I had other things to do.
Oh no!
But
Playing Tab S is a legitimate excuse for anything, okay? I grant him that.
But even though I'm talking about Pacific Rim 2, that doesn't mean that it technically existed. Just think of this video like I'm making fun of a piece of fanfiction. Because that's essentially what this is. This is just fanfiction. Studio-run corporate fanfiction. Del Toro and Beecham didn't return for this, and instead, entirely new creative heads came in at studio request. People may say this film was a mistake, or an abomination, but I couldn't disagree more. When you think about it, Uprising is actually the perfect sequel, because it shows just how easily it could have been for the original to fuck this premise up. You can watch it with the mindset that it isn't actually canon, and in fact is just a theoretical movie about what they would have done if the original was as soulless and shameless as possible. Or you can just not watch it at all. That's also a good option. Now, a sequel to Pacific Rim isn't the worst idea in the world, nor was it impossible.
We all wanted a sequel. I dreamed of a sequel. After the Would They Want They moment that Raleigh and Mako had, where for the first time in cinematic history, they did not kiss, I yearned for more, okay? I wanted to say this because if they were going to do an Evangelion thing without the sexual frustration, I was going to be invested. But we got this instead.
Sure, those aliens were nuked at the end of the last movie, but if I know one thing about Xeno scum, it's that there's probably more. Don't think they're gonna let that one go. A sequel could have worked, but it didn't. It didn't at all. So what went wrong? Well, let's start off with...
Oh my god.
Our new protagonist is Jake Pentecost, the son of Idris Elba's Major Pentecost. Played by John Rian Johnson will pay for what he did, Boyega. Apparently Pentecost had a son this entire time. Kinda strange you never mentioned him once. Years prior, Boyega had a falling out with his dad. He was a promising pilot in training, but tried to pilot a Jaeger by himself for some reason, and it almost melted his brain. Why did he do that? Is he stupid? Because of this dumb act, Elba kicked him out of school. Oops. What a way to write off his absence in the original. His dad was just ashamed of him. Damn.
He doesn't talk about me much.
Oh my days, I just realized something. The sequel tried to do the Evangelion thing, right? A trope that's been established. Okay, before Eva, we had Gundam. That already established that the universe, the whole wide of the world, can be saved by adolescents piloting mechas. And the main protagonist always needs to have parental issues, either missing a parent, being a total psycho, or both combined. And what better trope than to copy the Archbishop of degeneracy that is Shinji Ikari. I was not joking in the previous video when I made that edit with Shia LaBeouf that you may not have noticed, okay? I was thinking, perhaps he could have been a wonderful leader, and somebody wrote in the comment section that Michael Cera would have made a better role. I raise you, Julio. Well, I don't drink alcohol, so a cup of coffee will have to do. But we have a protagonist that is living a life of complete degeneracy, deals with ice cream and freaking hot sauce. What the fuck is going on with that plot? His dad hates him and only sobers up after his mentor is almost, well, she dies. It's really fucking Shinji. He is Black Shinji. I'm going to have to enter that clip of Shinji sipping coffee.
Really makes you think.
Betrayed by the country he loves, Jake the dog turns to a life of crime, becoming a wealthy criminal by scrapping Jaeger parts and selling them on the black market. You know, it isn't that bad of an idea. The son of the no-nonsense major being a punk. That's interesting. They don't do anything with it, but it's interesting. Boyega's backstory is really only utilized for the first 15 minutes of the movie. His life with debauchery catches up with him after a deal goes wrong, and then the rest of the movie happens. Like, we never get this aspect of him ever again. He just becomes another generic protagonist.
It's true. It never comes back. And why? We already had this premise established in the first movie with Hellboy, aka Ron Perlman. And it's not the other way around. That there was already a black market established for kaiju parts. So, naturally it would follow that that thing could be implemented in the sequel or second movie. Yet, that aspect never shows up again. There's literally a point where they are attacked by those drones and supposedly should have been at a loss of parts to repair their Jaegers. Yet, did a sudden appearance of, let's say, like in a Fast and Furious, like his family of criminals show up to help him gather some parts to boost like an epic Jaeger? No. That would have made sense. At least following the continuity of the movie, it would have made sense.
This is our time. This is our chance to make a difference.
The movie has to move on to all the other fascinating characters of Pacific Rim 2, like Girl, Scott Eastwood, Chinese CEO, random-ass kids.
Oh, come on, Renata, not the base.
Sorry, man.
Remember how the world had to come together to develop and maintain the Jaeger program? How the Jaegers were so expensive that the program was scrapped altogether? Yeah, this girl built one in her garage. I get technology is expensive at first and then trickles down to the public later on, but this girl is building a mech out of assorted Jaeger parts in a post-apocalyptic wasteland.
And she somehow managed to bypass the whole, it doesn't need two pilots, okay? It only needs one. To try to pull off gotta borrow that saying from Mark Wahlberg here.
Now, is it okay to be a kid, little J-Lo?
From Transformers Age of Extinction, where she literally made a BB-8. A giant one. But luckily that thing was shut down after like 15 minutes of the movie playing through.
It takes forever just to build a custom car in a suburban garage. Imagine building a robot by yourself as a teenager. The movie excuses this by saying it's a smaller robot, so that makes it more logical. Yet this little guy can roll and do stuff I've never seen another mech do before. Despite this girl building her own little robot, she just becomes another pilot. It's like if in Top Gun, Goose could just design his own superplane, but they just make him fly them instead. Speaking of Top Gun, Jaeger School. To avoid a life sentence at Guantanamo Bay, Boyega is forced to become the new instructor for the next generation of Jaeger pilots. What better teacher than the guy who was kicked out of Jaeger School all those years ago?
Right.
It's like if the new teacher had actually gone to the same high school years before, but he was that kid that fell asleep at the wheel and crashed into a wall.
Oh!
Speaking of falling asleep, Scott Eastwood.
You have to understand your enemy. Yeah.
Another plot hole within this movie. They never explained his weird obsession with toppings. They just tried to make a quirky character without any reasons.
Oh, well, I'm touched. Now, how many damn toppings do you need?
Leave my toppings be, man. Don't mess with my damn toppings.
It came off as being really lame.
There was a time Hollywood tried to make Scott Eastwood a thing, but he's always just there. He's not bad, he's just not really anything else. And he's the co-lead of this movie, so that's our stellar main cast. Sure, there's others, like the Chinese CEO, and Charlie Day, and the random assortment of forgettable children, but we'll get to those. Oh boy, we'll get to those.
He is not strong enough! None of you are strong enough!
Tone is important. Tone is the atmosphere, the energy of the film, or to put it simply, what do you feel while watching it? And that tone is why so many can just write off this as a fake sequel. It's just off. This is mainly thanks to a whole different directing style, an inherent lack of Del Toro charm, which is my way of saying, the original looked kinda weird and cheesy, but I liked it. There was a strangeness to the world. A majority of the film was either in darkness or at night. It had Ron Perlman. Pacific Rim 2 looked at everything the original did and threw it out the window. Now every fight is during the day, the brightest day imaginable.
Brightest day, blackest night. This sequel is evil. Hal Jordan, 2018.
Remove any semblance of these being large machines. Have those Jaegers do jumps, flips, whatever the hell this is. Who cares about any sense of weight? Just destroy the illusion these mechs are controlled by people.
This movie, or should I rather say franchise, was not marketed to a young, impressionable audience. The predominant group that was going to be watching this were people who already liked the first one and who were fans of mecha. If you cannot do that market research when you're making a movie, you are likely going to miss it. And again, it works within the context of what it is, okay? But as a sequel, it completely drops the tone.
Remove the anticipation between punches, along with those vital pauses in the movement. Now they just look like giants in power armor, instead of 100-foot-tall robots. Just because the action is faster now, it doesn't make it more impressive. If anything, it does the opposite. Any punch or swing feels less impactful. But hey, the movie does have a solution for that. The classic way to show any moment as important. Slow motion, and Dutch angles, and licensed music.
Licensed music, there we go.
It really...
Gotta make something clear here. The intro of this thing, right? With the soundtrack there. It's from Run the Jewels, and it's called Nobody Speaks. And it goes like this, literally, the first lyrics. Picture this, I'm a bag of dicks. Summarizes the movie pretty well, doesn't it?
It really is, just not the same. Oh wow, it's already this long into the video, and I haven't even talked about what happens in it. Silly me. Silly me.
I mean, to be fair, the plot only kicks in like 30 minutes into the movie after the death of Mako.
10 years after the kaiju attacks, humanity is still rebuilding. Jake Pentecost, though, is living the high life, thanks to his life of crime, just like me. His time of debauchery catches up with him, though, after a deal goes wrong, and along with a teenage girl named Amara, they both get coerced by the feds to join the Jaeger program. You might be wondering why the Jaeger program still even exists. Well, humanity has just continued to prepare for something, just in case. Which means none of these Jaegers or their pilots actually have experience fighting a kaiju. I think the only one with real experience left is Mako, and Raleigh too, but he's not in the movie. That's fine. Don't worry about it, because all these pilots are going to be replaced with drones. Chinese drones, by a private Chinese company. Before this can get approved though, the city of Sydney is attacked by a rogue evil Jaeger. Yeah, there are bad Jaegers now, just roll with it. But who's controlling them? And why? We don't know. All that's certain is that the Chinese giant robot drones are the future, and in no way can backfire at all. Luckily, Mako is there to continue to vote against the robot drones. She dies in a fucking helicopter crash. Yeah, Mako, the driving character of the last movie, has like 3 scenes in the whole movie, and then dies in a chopper crash. Lovely. Can't believe they assassinated a character like that. You know, killed her off in such a way. Not an actual character assassination. Nah, that's reserved for Charlie Day.
But the biggest crime that this does is to imply that her death was the motivator to change John into the leader, the one who's supposed to make a very, very inferior speech to "Today we're canceling the apocalypse." Like, how? He has zero character arc, okay? There's nothing there. Her death should not have that much of an impact on his life. At least, not according to what we got shown onto the point where it happens, half an hour into the movie.
The main antagonist.
I'm ending the world.
Charlie Day is evil.
Waluigi.
Get up from that, you pile of junk!
You might agree with that assessment that this was a character assassination, ruining a pivotal character like Dr. Newt Geisler. And that previous segment might have made you think I also think it was a character assassination. But no, it was just for a bit. I couldn't think of a better segue. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be honest. I wouldn't call Charlie Day being evil some character-ruining decision. It's not implemented really well, at all.
He is not strong enough! None of you are strong enough!
Now hear me out. This guy was always obsessed with kaijus.
He's a kaiju groupie.
Shut up, Herman, I don't them.
Remember that brain drifting he did all those years ago? Well, he didn't exactly stop.
You read my mind.
He peered into the abyss.
Is he fucking that brain?
Yeah.
Is Charlie Day fucking that monster brain?
He called him a kaiju groupie in the first movie. How much more clearer do we have to say it?
Just like with years of social media use, his mind has become corrupted beyond belief. Charlie Day isn't actually evil now. He's basically possessed. They confirmed that behind the scenes. He's kind of like the girl in The Exorcist. It's still handled pretty terribly. The biggest problem with Uprising is that for half of the movie, we just don't know what the plot even is. There are no stakes here. The consequences of this world were decided in the last movie. Eventually, we learn about Charlie's grand plan. For years, he's been rising up the ranks of the Shao Corporation, coming up with the idea of drone Jaegers, thousands of drone Jaegers. And he successfully was able to implant all of these Jaegers with kaiju brains. That evil Jaeger was just a kaiju brain. Kaiju brains control Jaegers now. So Charlie Day betrays the rest of humanity, unleashing his horde of half-kaiju Jaegers on the Shatterdome and the world. Now, somehow by combining their laser powers, the robots are able to open dozens of new rifts across the Pacific. Honestly, when watching this, I thought, my god, like that's insane. How the hell are they gonna get out of this? Like, just one rift almost ended the world last time. dozens of kaiju coming in simultaneously, and the Jaeger base is destroyed. Not to mention now there are half kaiju Jaegers running around the place. The stakes are actually kind of high now. These corrupted giant robots look kinda neat. Alright, movie. I'm on board. Why not? They're gonna have to fight this army of monster Jaegers. Awesome.
And look, I know that some people had some issues with this, like the plot felt like something that was written by a child. At least this whole thing of like, the bad guys are actually the good guys, but controlled by the bad guys. Like, this, I think, worked, okay? Like, if they were already in anime territory, having kaiju controlling the Jaegers is like something that we've seen before. Again, I'm gonna bust out Evangelion once more. We've seen this, okay? So it's not unfamiliar territory. But how you handle it, what it did with it, that's where it sticks out.
Then they just shut down the Jaegers.
Yes!
How
That's it.
stupid.
Took them about 10 minutes. The lady CEO of the Shao Corporation hits an off switch, and the army of Jaegers just aren't a threat anymore.
Somehow, that
All
closes
this
the
build up
portal.
for these monster robots, and then it's resolved. They had to just reboot their computers. In the end, only 3 kaiju get through the rift and head towards Tokyo. You see, the precursors have an ultimate plan: to blow up Mount Fuji, as blowing up Mount Fuji will activate the whole Pacific Ring of Fire, causing every volcano to explode, terraforming the world.
That is another anime plot from the series Springan, I think it is. But that one has a bit more for like religious subtext, but yeah, they basically try to do the same thing.
First off, precursors? That's what people call the aliens now? I swear, I'm not trying to relate everything back to Halo. It just keeps happening to me. Why the name precursors? That name implies something that came before, like a past tense, which is why they were the name of the alien race before the Forerunners.
Yeah.
What exactly are these aliens the precursor of? They and humans exist at the same time. They're actively fighting one another. What does this name even mean? Second, why didn't they just blow up Mount Fuji in the first place? 2 decades ago, with even the first kaiju. They had like 10 years to keep sending monsters at it, but decided to just attack all over the Pacific instead. The entire lore is just fundamentally broken now. Yeah, so it was all set up to have this final fight in Tokyo. Our surviving team of child soldiers rocket their way to Japan to confront the kaiju. In the 2010s, Hollywood really tried to tap into that Chinese market, and like some taps tend to do, it blew up in their face. What does it mean for a movie to be pro-China? It can be simply depicting the Chinese like your average Michael Bay movie portrays the military. It can be making a movie relatable to the mainland Chinese audience. Or it can be even filming next to a concentration camp. Thanks, Disney. And in 2016, the
Yeah, Mulan never escaped it.
Dylan Wanda Group bought Legendary Pictures for $3.5 billion. With that, there were some changes to be had, even to existing projects like Pacific Rim 2. I'm not going to complain about China having a more prominent role in the sequel. Pacific Rim only got a sequel because it was so successful in China. These movies are set in the Pacific. It makes sense that in the sequel, the Chinese would be more than just background characters. Now that said, the characters in Uprising, they're, well, let's get back to evil Charlie Day.
I'm ending the world.
So Charlie Day's the head scientist of Shao Industries, right? The leading figure that pushes the drone program. He is, if anything, subservient to the CEO and founder of Shao, Li Wen Shao. Li Wen is cold and stern.
Say what? Sorry. She doesn't do the whole handshaking thing.
Charlie is afraid of her, basically, for the whole movie. It's pretty obvious they're 100% behind the evil Jaeger attack. They probably even killed Mako to stop the vote from going through. This is built up for half of the movie. And then Charlie Day turns evil. Li Wen Shao employed and trusted Charlie She gave him free reign to create these drones. And yeah, while she was betrayed by Charlie, they're still responsible for this occurring in some way, right? Imagine an arrogant corporation getting its comeuppance by flying too close to the sun. Like, Shao creates these drones and then the drones betray them. Typically, the movie would reflect on that. Show how their arrogance was kind of a bad thing.
Nope.
Yeah, that isn't what happens.
Most systems are online. Sending help.
I mean, she pushed an off switch there.
Instead, after Charlie's betrayal, Li Wenxiao immediately solves the drone problem. She and her corporation distance themselves from Charlie, and then they become the protagonists. She becomes a protagonist. She becomes a fucking Jaeger pilot. I'm not saying Li Wen should have been blamed or punished for Charlie going rogue, but at least recognize the accidental contribution in some way. Maybe a character could have called Shao out for not being more alert about what Charlie was doing. Maybe Shao feels an immense amount of guilt for being bamboozled. Instead, we get nothing. Shao Industries is both an incredibly powerful corporation and also not at fault for the actions of Charlie. It seems like the movie expects the audience to just move forward, and if anything, cheer for Li Wen as she helps save the day.
Li Wen! Are you reading this?
That's one of my automated factories. It was Newt.
Pacific Rim 2 isn't just pandering to a market that liked the original. This is the only film I've ever seen where the all-powerful business is the protagonist. It's like the Wanda Group really did just purchase Legendary and rewrote the script to include a Chinese company that saves the world. Instead of the boys writing Vought as the soulless corporation that they were, Amazon forced the writers to make Vought the real heroes all along, and an equivalent of Jeff Bezos descends down to kick Homelander in the nuts. Or Zuckerberg produced The Social Network, and the lesson of the movie is that Andrew Garfield was stupid and dumb. So now I guess the question we all have is who? Who the hell is responsible for this? As easy as it is to just blame studio interference or the director, the answer isn't that simple. There isn't a lot of information available, but the best insight I got was from one interview, in a video that, as of this recording, has less than 2,000 views. Thanks to the channel Filmmaking and Fandom Station, by the way. So let's go back to the first movie. It's a major hit. The studio wants a sequel, Del Toro wants a sequel, and he's entirely on board, wanted to direct and everything, but delays kept happening. Legendary was bought out by the Wanda Group, and this led to an internal shakeup which delays the project even further. A few years of delay, actually, and by now Del Toro had already moved on to another project. Something about boning a fish. I don't know.
Oh yeah, The Shape of Water, yeah.
If you've heard of it. So Del Toro just kind of pushed Pacific Rim back to the studio, with a few suggestions and ideas of course, but he's not in charge of anything at this point. The studio can do whatever they want, and they wanted to bring in someone new, someone who could both write and direct, a full creative vision for the new sequel, and in my opinion, someone who wasn't influential enough to push back on any decisions the studio wanted to make. So what the hell happened then? First, Del Toro's lack of involvement. The studio going ahead without his vision really should have killed this project from the start. That doesn't mean Del Toro contributed absolutely nothing. He actually did. There were a few ideas Del Toro had for an initial sequel that went into this movie. For one, Charlie being evil. Yeah, people's biggest complaint with this movie. That was something Del Toro discussed with Charlie for a sequel idea.
I'm just not feeling totally myself these days.
In the first draft of the movie, Raleigh was supposed to come back. Mako was supposed to die, and this scene would have been Raleigh failing to save Mako rather than John Boyega. Now, I'm just gonna say it, Mako dying like this is still stupid.
Yeah.
She doesn't go out in a Jaeger, but as a passenger in a chopper. Like, what the hell? DeKnight hints that maybe Mako isn't dead permanently. Like, he kind of does a hint, nudge. I'm gonna interpret that as Mako coming back to life through some alien kaiju hijinks. So cool. Script is written up, everything's good to go. Well, Charlie Dunham has a schedule issue, so they have to rewrite another script with a different lead.
So, wait a minute. They could have done the thing that was done in Pacific Rim the Black. Because in there, you have this little boy who is like a catalyst, is like a human hybrid kind of thing. And he has kind of like healing properties. So you infuse that to a human, brings them back to life. Now you have pilots who perhaps can now pilot Jaegers on the lonesome. Make Mako like the actual hybrid kaiju pilot that could do something freaking insane. Raleigh then has to find a new co-pilot because we know that ship has sailed. They are never gonna get together. Charlie Day's evil, but change his personality completely. Make him actually like a subservient drone. Drop the quipping kind of attitude that he has, and or if you want to give him some type of personality, perhaps give him something like, I don't know, Dan Steven from Legion, right? His David Holler character where he has the multiple personality, but make him into an actual psycho. He can see through people, he might have some type of like telekinetic ability, peering into people's minds, almost influencing them, which will explain why it is that he was able to infuse all of the drones around him while freaking being under surveillance 24/7. Like, make it make sense, dude. These are not... I personally, I think that what I just literally made up on the spot makes more sense than what we got shown in the movie. Let me know in the comment section if you would have liked to see something of the sort, or perhaps an alternative plot that you would have liked to see.
They have a few ideas pitched around and none of them are going anywhere. So Del Toro comes in, and he has the idea for Idris Elba to have a son. John Boyega's character was a Del Toro creation, which even the director thought was strange because nobody mentioned this guy before. But that's why they wrote this elaborate backstory of them having a falling out. So John Boyega's character was just their best attempt at resolving a schedule dispute.
Wow.
Denight mentioned how a lot of the issues that he saw with the movie just came down to budget. He wanted Mako to have a lot more presence in the film, but in the end she only got a few scenes. He kept bringing up how he was kind of powerless despite being the director, while also not blaming the studio at the same time. And in my opinion, this just sounds like a small director who doesn't want to lose any future job opportunities. It's really hard to say where his vision ends and the studio's begin. As much as we can talk about studio interference in China, sometimes a creative vision just isn't great. I can't imagine the studio told him to change everything about Pacific Rim, how the Jaegers fundamentally fight, having the camera move around like this, slow motion, and Dutch angles. So many Dutch angles. According to Denight, Del Toro told him to not make a Del Toro Pacific Rim, but to make his own.
Okay. I feel bad for hating this now. So this was just a jumble mess. This was a guy trying to do the thing that who's the director that tends to work with Snyder? Because people are always so freaking confused, especially even right now with the reveal of the James Gunn Superman movie. And I'm going like, no, we want to see the Snyder version instead. Dude, Snyder knows how to make scenes. He's not writing plots, he's not a screenwriter, he's barely even a storyteller, and he does not make a full-fledged movie, okay? He knows cinematography, that's his shit. So when it comes to screenwriting, so it's difficult. So like, I would understand if a person who is given something where he has to pick up some slack and is literally told that you have to cover something that was all style of a substance, and you cannot do, you're explicitly told to not do the thing that most people came here to see. It's gotta suck. I feel bad for the guy, but then again, how much overreach did the executive have here?
Which, while that is an incredibly nice thing to say, I kind of wish he didn't say it, because after he did, Denight went off to the races. Denight did end up differentiating Pacific Rim 2 from the original, by just removing everything that people liked about the original. I guess it really is just a shame that Del Toro was never able to make the Pacific Rim sequel he wanted. Who knows? Pacific Rim could have went on to be a successful franchise. I mean, of course, assuming that a Del Toro sequel would have been good. Which, I mean, come on. Of course it would have, right? You know, when I was researching this, I came across this quote that Del Toro said like 3 years ago. It was his original idea for the sequel, which I'm just gonna read out verbatim. The villain was this tech guy that had invented basically sort of the internet 2.0, and then they realized that all his patents came to him one morning. And so little by little they started putting together this, and they said, oh, he got them from the precursors, the guys that control the kaiju. And then we found out that the precursors are us, thousands of years in the future. Del Toro went on to explain, they're trying to terraform, trying to re-harvest the Earth to survive. Wow, and that we were in exo-biosuits that looked alien, but they were not. We were inside, and it was a really interesting paradox. Had Del Toro made Pacific Rim 2, the aliens were going to be revealed to be future humans.
I'm sorry, I have the best mixture of deja vu right now. Roland Emmerich, where the fuck are you?
Entire time. Humans sent the kaiju. You know, sometimes things just aren't meant to have sequels.
Yeah. My world just got shattered. This was not the ending that I expected. What the actual hell? Okay, we're doomed. Pacific Rim is dead. Here lies Pacific Rim. Slain too young. Just one movie. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. As always, please do make sure to go and subscribe to the PointlessHub channel. And of course, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and also subscribe button to see more. That being said, wish you all to have a wonderful day. See you guys in the next one. Bye.